So, as I mentioned last time on the last segment, this is the piece of beech that I'm working with. I'm going to be using half of its thickness for the router table fence, but to cut the thickness, this is too wide. This is 230 millimeters. I'm limited on the bandsaw to 150 really as a working depth. So what I'm going to do is mark 150 from this edge. This is the face edge. 150, and literally cut the whole piece in half. Then I'll be able to cut both slabs in half that way on the bandsaw. Then I can join everything together and it should be as strong, well, almost as strong as it is now. It's not going to need much load bearing, but it will mean I will have the full height of 230 millimeters to work at. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just marking up £150 millimeters. And the total thickness is about 77-78 millimeters. This blade will just about do it. So 150. There we go. Set the fence roughly to that 150 millimeters. That's it. So get my ears. And we're all set. Oh boy, am I glad I wasn't cutting that by hand. That was hard work even with this table saw. But a little bit of scorching, but that's not a bad finish. So that's given me 150 millimeters roughly for the cutting in the bandsaw, and as I said, I'm going to split it down the middle on both pieces, and then I can join that bit to that bit again for the full height of the fence. So to set up the bandsaw for those pieces of beech, one thing I've been made aware of, and I'm going to put a link to it in the description below, but it's a video by Axminster Tools from their workshops. It's how to set up the bandsaw and what blades to use. And one of the points they made was that you need maybe 10, at the maximum, 10 teeth going through the piece of work at any one time. That way it gives you plenty of clearage for the dust. This blade is 10 to 14 teeth per inch. That's too fine for the amount of cutting that I'm going to be doing from what the advice from Axminster said. So I'm just going to change this for a 3 teeth per inch blade, and then I'll be able to cut everything quite easily. So slacken the tension. Take out the retaining nut. Take out the dust, and then ease the blade out of the guide. And if I turn this round, you're able to see what I'm doing. Let's push that all the way down. Give me a little more manoeuvring room. Not making a very good job. I'm making quite a bosh of this, aren't I? And the last thing I want is to lacerate my fingers. That back there. Oh, we're getting there. Oh boy, am I making a bosh of this. Even a botch of this. Please, this is not how you should do it. do is use a pair of gloves. Well, half a pair of gloves. Just so that I don't tear my fingers to shreds. There. Now take that up, there we go. I've got there eventually, you see. And finally success. Please, don't copy me. It's not a good idea. Okay, so brand new blade, 3 teeth per the inch. A very old and dirty blade, but it still cuts. And what I'm going to do is a proper pair of gloves. Back. So I've got more room to work. And then there we go. Okay, so one thing I really need to do is clear this lot, because it is absolutely filthy under there. So hopefully you can see this is the underneath of the table, and the tabletop is secured by 4 nuts. What I'm going to do is take the table off altogether. You don't normally do this for changing a blade, but because I want to make sure everything is clean, that's why I'm going to take the table off. And these are 13mm nuts. There we are, 4 nuts off, and the table just lifts straight off. That means I've now got a clear access to all of these, and you notice offcuts have got have slipped down there as well, so that's not a good idea. So let's move these out of the way, and I've just spotted 4 washers on the table support. Don't want to lose those either. Okay, so remove these 2 guards. These 2 rear ones are again 13mm nuts. One guard. These are Allen keys, and that's the 3mm, I think it is. Yeah, 3mm Allen key. Yeah, that's Now you notice all this debris here, that's really all got to come out, otherwise it's just going to build up and cause great problems in the future. So let me get the vacuum and just vacuum that out. Excuse me a minute. Well, that's got rid of some of the dirt, but everything else needs to really move as well. So these are 4mm Allen keys. Those come right out, you see, and that means I can then really get in there to give that a good clean. And you notice here there's a lot of build up there, so all of that's got to come out, because that's just going to cause friction in the future with potential problems. What I'm going to do I've got a small bradawl that I'm just going to work around there. Getting rid of all of that most of that accumulation. Because one thing I've discovered, these bearings do not like WD-40 being used on them. I had one, okay, it was a very small bearing, but I used WD-40 on this very tiny bearing, and next time I used it, as soon as it came up to speed, it just disintegrated on me. So mechanical get rid of the dirt rather than chemical, because I don't want any of these bearings to disintegrate on me. There we go. Just get rid of some more of the loose around here. It's incredible how much of this gets here. I've hardly used the machine. So okay, put the bearings back. And this is just temporary positioning. Until I put the blade in. Okay, so that's that. Next, just slacken the motor. So that now moves freely. That's the tension is slackened. Okay, so let's put a little bit of tension on that. And let's check the tracking. That's far too far to the back. Because again, going back to the video from Axminster, the teeth need to be standing proud of the crown so that they don't get flattened against the wheel and push the kerf out of alignment. But that is, the whole blade is moving backwards at that. So the back here is where we move the upper wheel backwards and forwards, tilting it. So unlock it, and I can never remember which way this one goes. That is coming toward the front of the wheel, so a little bit more. Now that seems to be tracking nicely at the top. The problem is it's now misaligned on the bottom. So that needs to come back again. Move that. Move that to the front. And try that tracking. So that hopefully you'll be able to see. And so you notice the edge of the teeth are just off the top of the crown of the wheel. And if I rotate it slowly, you should be able to see that the blade stays in that position now. One thing we don't want is for the blade to move backwards and forwards on this wheel. So that tracking's looking nice. Now, again, going back to the Axminster video, I've always tested the tension here. I've always tried moving the tension like that, the point they made was that those guide rollers and those guide rollers are designed to limit the movement. So the best place to test the tension is here, because there's nothing from that point to that point. Sorry, you can't see, can you? Down here, there's nothing from there to there to impede the blade. So the point they made was increase the tension until you can no longer push the blade against the frame of the saw. Now that's just about right. I can now no longer touch the frame, so the tension is now correct. The next thing we've got to do is adjust where the guide rollers are with regard to the blade, so that the front of the roller is behind the teeth, because the last thing we want is for the teeth to dig into the rollers. So for that, 4mm Allen key and that adjusts the position. So what we need, let me take this off and then we'll be able to show you properly. So this nut here adjusts that bottom pair of rollers, and can you see we need to keep them far enough forward so that it comes up to the ground part of the blade, but certainly don't want to come any further forward. And so that's that. All I need to do now is lock that and tighten that, so that now won't move for the rollers. Next thing is to actually make sure that that gap is adequate, and to be honest it is. There's very little. You can get a piece of paper in there, but it's not going to move very much at all. That's fine. The next thing is this roller. Now again, this is to stop the blade pushing backwards, and there mustn't be more than 1/2 millimetre between the bearing and the blade. And again, it's a case of slackening that nut and then moving that backwards and forwards to make sure it doesn't contact the blade under normal circumstances. And then tighten that up. There we go. And then we repeat the process on these bottom 3 bearings. That isn't moving. There is actually a little bit too much gap on this one here, so that's undone. These are eccentric cams. There we go. That's got that one. Tighten that up. And then the top gun. Just make sure nothing moves. That's fine. Yeah, good. So that's that. Next thing, put the dust guard back into place, and as the dust comes down the blade, it will hit that and then deflect into the extraction pipe. So that's that. Next thing is re-engage the motor. And I mustn't forget, lock that tracking guide off, because the last thing I want is for that to move as well. Okay. Next thing is to reinstall the table. The easiest way, guide that through there and then just twist. Let's take the fence off first. I know I've said this before, but this channel is Ben's workshop journey, and so you're seeing all the mistakes I'm making as I'm learning along the way. And one thing I have forgotten to do there were the 4 large washers that go on the table supports. Don't forget those. And you notice the problem I'm having. That's 2 of them in. That's the second pairing. Okay. Okay, so that's that. That's on loosely. Reinstall that like that. Put the guide in. Now, because I've taken the table off, what I must do is make sure that the blade is square to the table. So, square, and yes, it is. That's good. Okay, so that's nice and square. Now I've got to make sure that the blade there is square with the table itself. And that's where my bandsaw buddy comes in. So, 2 magnets attach like that. There's the fence. And you'll notice that just here there is, the square is up against the fence, but there is a very large gap here because the table is not square. So that's a case of, before we tighten the table up with those 4 nuts underneath, we make sure that that is very square, and that is just about right. So now I can, the table's square. All I've got to do now is tighten up those 4 nuts. So I've reattached the fence. All I've got to do now is make sure that the fence is nice and square to the table. That's that. And to double check that the blade is square to the fence. Now that is a long way up. Okay, let's readjust the table. There we go. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I haven't put the guards on the blade at the bottom, and you're quite correct, I haven't. One thing I want to do though is just check the blade runs quietly without problems. Right, this bearing is actually in contact with the blade, so that needs moving. I'm just trying to think where I put the screwdrivers. There we go. Let's try again. Let's go on. Let's try the bottom one. And the right hand bearing is the one that's in contact this time. There we go. That's nice and tight. So now that's up and running. It's a case of refitting these two fence guards. Okay, so new blades fitted. It runs very, very smoothly. I've made sure that all of the guards are in place, top and bottom. I've made sure that the guide bushes are in the right place and they're not running when there's no load on the blade. I've made sure that the fence is parallel to the blade. I've made sure that the blade is 90 degrees to the table, and everything's looking good. So on Saturday I'll be cutting the beach pieces down, and I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.